motion, he got a second that we request for proposals for internal auditor. What is the discussion?
Okay. Item number 8, to consider final adoption of an ordinance recommending administration to present any and all lawsuits that exceed $5,000 to be presented to the council for approval. Book item number 38.
Move.
Second.
Could I be heard on that, Mr. Johnson, before
Yes, Mr. Johnson.
before y'all emasculate my office? Gentlemen, I want to speak out against this ordinance. I want to say publicly right now that this is going to severely impair the ability of my office to efficiently resolve cases. I brought the list of claims against the city. Currently, there are 96 workers' compensation cases, 34 auto cases, and 56 general liability cases. Settlement negotiations normally track trial schedules. Civil trials in Rapides Parish are held on Mondays, so these 186 claims that we're talking about, we're going to have special session meetings on Fridays to discuss settlement authority. Every claim that exists against the city, gentlemen, I can tell y'all is worth more than $5,000. Nobody sues us for less than that. Even the workers' compensation cases where they're just medical bills involved, typically all of those are over $5,000. We have to discuss each and every one of those 96 claims before they can be settled. Now, ultimately, what's going to happen with this ordinance is it's going to end up costing taxpayers more money because where my advice is rejected, the professional fees are going to escalate. We're going to have excess judgments that we're going to get hit with where my advice is rejected. And in certain cases, like workers' compensation cases, where you have specific deadlines where payments must be made to remain in good faith, we're going to be hit with penalties. If we can't get a quorum for these just massive number of meetings we're going to have, we'll be forced to try cases that should be settled without having any settlement authority, which is going to increase the liability of the city. I'm not sure personally who on this council is qualified to make these determinations about quantum. How many of y'all know how much a C6 lumbar strain is worth as far as liability is concerned? I think what the purpose of this ordinance, it defeats having attorneys in the first place if you're going to reject that advice and end the case. Every city attorney before me had this authority, Mr. Sanders, Mr. Nunley. None of them had their offices micromanaged like this. I can't wait to see how many of y'all are going to actually show up for all these meetings that we're going to have to be able to resolve these 186 cases. And as city attorney and as a citizen, I think this is bad policy, and the administration is opposed to it.
We have on the books presently, we do have ordinance on the books presently, but it's capped out at 100,000.
It's 100,000, that's correct.
Okay, so now it's not that you think someone is picking on you because we already have it on the books, and we, it's not like we didn't have it on the books. It just got scaled back to 5,000. So I want to clear that.
We have 186.
Why don't we just change it to $1?
We have 186 cases that are worth more than $5,000. Potentially worth more than $5,000. And how many meetings is it going to take for us to discuss? We're going to take 20 at each meeting?
The problem is,
Mr. Lawson.
we don't know on none of, we don't know what monies we spend, or the taxpayers' money we are spending on any of these cases. We do not know. That was the reason for the ordinance that we passed when we passed it before. And we still don't know. We know we got a hefty fund there, but we don't know what's being spent out of the fund. All we look at it at the end of the year when we do budget.
I have a...
Mr. Lawson, then Mr. Johnson.
And keeping with the theme of transparency, Why don't we air it in the public? I mean, any claims are settled. If we text till 6 o'clock in the morning and then ends at 6 p.m., let's lay out there what they are. If it's a personnel issue and it's something of nature, we certainly want to impede your ability to do your job. But I came from a body where lawsuits were approved, 2 other governmental agencies, and to say this is going to slow us down, how many of these are actually court cases that you're talking about?
Potentially.
No. That's how many are.
There are deadlines in all of them.
Okay, but how many are court cases?
All of them are court cases. You mean suits filed?
Are all these going to court?
All of them are in litigation.
How many have actually gone to court? Okay.
Well, there's no court. If they're filed against the city, there's potential liability for us, Mr. Lawson. Just because a suit hadn't been filed, it doesn't mean that we don't have exposure.
Well, I called the question.
Jim, I also have a letter that I'd like the public to be aware of. Allen Parish, back in 2001, adopted a similar policy. This letter is to Andy Storr, who is our risk management adjuster. It's from Jeffrey Cole, who was the attorney at the time. It says, "Dear Andy, the school board gave you $25,000 in authority to settle this lawsuit." I'm not going to state the name of the lawsuit. He says, "I was trying to save a little money and I offered the plaintiff $18,000. Plaintiff rejected that offer and then read to me from an article that appeared in the newspaper in which it stated that the school board had authorized your company to settle the claim for $25,000. The plaintiff told me he's currently mulling whether to accept that offer." So in that case, the plaintiff found out publicly about the offer. The attorney made a settlement offer which was lower, and they refused to accept it because they knew how much money the school board intended to spend ultimately. He goes on to say, "It's a little bit difficult to save anything off the settlement authority when the settlement authority appears in the newspaper."
Any other questions or comments? Recommendation?
This item also was pulled from the agenda, and it's lay over 2 weeks to be reintroduced.
I disagree with that.
Go read the minutes.
Doesn't matter, you can pull it, you send it to committee, and it's coming out with a favorable recommendation out of committee. Read Robert Rules of Order.
Was not
When it comes out of committee, it goes to the final.
What's the recommendation coming out of the committee, Councilman Lawson?
I move that administration bring all claims over $5,000 before the city council for final approval.
I so move.
Mr. Johnson, for clarification, are those going to be all in special session? If we're discussing liability, if there's litigation involved in all of these. All these are in litigation, going to have to all be.
No, but
You
we do it just like we normally do the insurance claim.
I think you're playing the intellect of the council. You think that we're going to discuss the personal injury of someone or the strategy of a case in open session? No, we said we're going to discuss the... I thought we said we're going to settle the cases. This doesn't say about discussing the content of it. What does it say, discuss the content of it? We're approving the settlement.
How are you going to decide?
Anyway, it passed...
How are you going to decide whether to settle the case if you don't know the facts of the case?
Transparency.
Can we have a conversation, one person speaking at a time, in respect to the chair?
Anyway, it's passed. I actually we move the meeting.
Okay, one of the clerk asked for clarification on item number 7 in regards to your recommendation, Councilman Lawson.
Yeah, I want us to request for proposals for internal auditing firms to be hired to work on the behalf